Is it possible that a simple line, a hollow circle, and several red curves could shake the narrative of Korean culture, shift the center of BTS's creative gravity, and open up the possibility that Jungkook is not merely contributing, but gradually taking over Arirang with the blessing or even the secret direction of Bang Si-hyuk? That question reverberated like an invisible metallic ring, bouncing through the inner space of millions of ARMY, cultural academics, art critics, and entertainment industry observers alike, ever since a seemingly innocent logo sketch suddenly appeared on X's timeline on January 16, 2026. What initially looked like a simple artistic expression from a K-pop idol slowly transformed into a field of speculation, debate, and collective unease that went far beyond mere graphic design. That morning, when the fanbase account at JKNFI Steam uploaded a logo sketch bearing the text Arirang, no one expected that those minimalist red lines would trigger a wave of discussion that transcended the world of fandom. On the surface, everything appeared beautiful, respectful, and rooted in tradition. Jungkook, BTS's golden magne, once again displayed his creative side, this time not through vocals, dance, or music production, but through a silent yet meaning-laden visual language. Yet beneath this simplicity, many began to wonder, why Arirang? Why Jungkook? And why now? The sketch deconstructed the word Arirang into geometric elements that felt almost meditative in their simplicity. The letter A was represented as a firm vertical line standing beside a hollow circle, as if illustrating a dialogue between presence and emptiness, between what is visible and what is hidden. Re appeared as a dynamic zigzag combined with a horizontally lined circle, creating a sensation of movement, vibration, and subtle tension. Meanwhile, Rang took form as an elegant curved line embracing a patterned circle, like a long breath carrying the memory of Korean history across time. For some, this was merely a beautiful design. For others, it was a statement. The red color chosen by Jungkook was not just an aesthetic decision. In Korean cultural context, red is often associated with passion, courage, protection, and the blood that flows through the nation's history. In this sketch, the red seemed to pulse, to live, as if it were not simply ink, but a heartbeat connecting past, present, and future. Did Jungkook intentionally embed this narrative, or was this part of a larger visual strategy designed behind HYB's closed doors? The @JKNFI team post did more than praise the beauty of the sketch. It framed Jungkook as a figure far deeper than just a performer. The Arirang logo sketch created by #Jungkook tells a lot about him for me. The account wrote, emphasizing that Jungkook's contribution to BTS's visual aspect was nothing new. However, this time felt different. There was an unspoken tone of grandeur, as if Jungkook was not merely contributing, but shaping a broader artistic direction. In the replies, praise poured in. @BeigeBear wrote about the depth of Jungkook's creativity, admiring his choice of Arirang as a symbol of national identity. For many ARMY, this was proof that BTS, through Jungkook, had never forgotten their roots despite conquering the global stage. Yet beneath this admiration, other whispers emerged, darker, more speculative, and more political. Some observers began questioning the timing of the sketch's appearance. Why Arirang, a folk song laden with nationalism, surfaced precisely as BTS prepared for a major album project that had yet to be fully revealed. Was this merely an artistic element, or an early clue to a more complex comeback narrative? Furthermore, was Jungkook acting on his own initiative, or had he become the face of a creative vision orchestrated by Bang Si-hyuk? Bang Si-hyuk, the central figure behind BTS's success and HYB's rise, is no stranger to such discussions. For years, he has been recognized as the architect behind the artistic and business strategies that brought K-pop to the world stage. Speculation began to grow. Did Bang Si-hyuk see Arirang as the perfect cultural bridge to strengthen BTS's identity in the eyes of the world? And if so, was Jungkook chosen as the visual representative because of his charisma, artistic credibility, or because he was deemed most capable of carrying a symbol as monumental as Arirang into the modern language of K-pop? Jungkook's minimalist design appeared calm, but within that calm lay symbolic tension. The red lines seemed to whisper that tradition does not have to be static, that culture can be reinterpreted without losing its soul. Yet for some circles, this reinterpretation carried the potential for controversy. was transforming the visual representation of Arirang into a modern form, an act of homage, or a form of appropriation. This is where the narrative began shifting from praise to debate. Some cultural critics argued that Arirang is not just a song, but a collective heritage of the Korean people. If this symbol were incorporated into a BTS project, especially through Jungkook's lens, would that mean Arirang would gradually become synonymous with BTS? And if so, who truly held control over that narrative, Jungkook as an artist, or Bang Si-hyuk as a strategic mastermind? Amid all this, one undeniable fact remained. Jungkook was increasingly revealing himself as a creative force behind BTS. He was no longer just a singer with a golden voice or a dancer with breathtaking precision, but also a visual thinker unafraid to experiment with form, meaning, and cultural context. For many fans, this was inspiring evidence of artistic growth. For others, it raised larger questions about the dynamics of creative power within BTS and HYBE. The Arirang sketch post has gathered over 1,900 likes, 577 reposts, and thousands of views, numbers that might seem small by global viral standards, but significant in the context of the deep discussion it generated. Each like, each comment, each speculation added another layer to the mystery surrounding this design. Arirang, a song that has endured for centuries as a symbol of resilience, now stands at the crossroads of tradition and modernity. Through Jungkook's hands, it has been reborn into a new form, clean, minimalist, yet emotionally charged. But is this transformation purely the product of an artist's soul, or part of a larger narrative carefully crafted behind the scenes? And here hangs the greatest question, echoing in the air like the final note of an unfinished song. Has Jungkook truly taken over Arirang, or is he merely a piece in a broader strategic game unfolding under the shadow of Bang Si-hyuk? The answer may not yet be clear, but one thing is certain, that Red Sketch has opened the door to a story far bigger, darker, and more dramatic than anyone could have imagined. As time passed after the January 16, 2026 upload, the red lines of Arirang were no longer merely seen as a design, but read as a cultural text, a symbol of power, and a potential manifestation of a larger vision behind HYBE's closed doors. Discussions that initially emerged from admiration gradually shifted into sharper analysis. Pop culture academics began dissecting how Jungkook, through his minimalist approach, seemed to be rewriting the visual language of Arirang. In tradition, Arirang is often depicted with classical ornamentation, hanbok motifs, or natural elements such as mountains and rivers. Yet Jungkook chose a different path, stripping it down until only the essence of form remained. Lines, circles, empty space, and pulsating red. This choice, according to some observers, was not coincidental, but a clever artistic strategy to bridge tradition with the sensibilities of the digital generation. However, beneath this praise, an invisible tension began to surface. Some critics questioned whether this visual transformation truly honored Arirang, or instead abstracted it, to the point of losing its historical context. Arirang is not just a song. It is the collective memory of the Korean people, a melody that has accompanied suffering, separation, resistance, and resilience for centuries. Transforming it into a minimalist logo for a BTS album could be read as homage, but it could also be interpreted as cultural commodification. This is where Bang Si-hyuk's name began to resonate again in public discourse. As the central figure behind HYBE, he has long been known for his sharp vision in packaging Korean identity for a global audience. From BTS's storytelling strategies to symbol-laden album concepts, his imprint is almost always felt. Thus, it was only natural that many asked, was Jungkook's Arirang sketch truly born from the spontaneous creativity of an idol, or was it part of a grand map designed in closed meeting rooms? Several anonymous sources in the entertainment industry began speculating that Arirang might become a central theme in BTS's upcoming group album. If true, then Jungkook's sketch was not merely a visual contribution, but the core of a broader comeback narrative, a statement about identity, cultural roots, and BTS's position in the post-military era. In this context, Jungkook could be seen not just as a group member, but as the representation of BTS's new face. More mature, more reflective, and more artistically daring. Yet this narrative also raised questions about power dynamics within BTS. For years, the group has been known as an egalitarian collective, where each member has space for self-expression. But if Jungkook is now increasingly prominent as a creative force, does this signal a shift in internal balance? Is he gradually taking on a more central role in the group's artistic direction? Or is this merely a public perception shaped by selective moments? Fans were divided into two camps. On one side, many ARMY celebrated Jungkook's growth as a multidimensional artist, seeing the Arirang sketch as proof of his depth of thought. They viewed it as a form of love for Korean culture wrapped in modern aesthetics. On the other hand, some felt uneasy, not toward Jungkook, but toward the possibility of cultural symbols being exploited for HYB's commercial interests. Media outlets began capturing this tension. Some described the sketch as a cultural bridge, while others labeled it a visual provocation that could spark broader debates about who has the right to interpret national symbols. Headlines grew increasingly dramatic, highlighting potential conflicts between art, nationalism, and the global entertainment industry. Amid this uproar, Jungkook himself remained silent. There was no official clarification, no interview, no personal statement explaining the intention behind his design. This silence only deepened the mystery. For some, it was a sign of artistic maturity, letting the work speak for itself. For others, it opened the door to uncontrolled speculation. Si-hyuk also offered no public comment. Yet those familiar with him understood that silence is often part of strategy. By allowing discussions to unfold, HYB could gauge public reaction, observe debates, and adjust the narrative of BTS's upcoming album accordingly. In this scenario, Jungkook's sketch could be seen as a test, a litmus test to see how the world would receive a modern reinterpretation of Arirang. Meanwhile, the symbolism in Jungkook's design continued to be analyzed. The hollow circle in the letter was interpreted as empty space inviting meaning, a place where past and future meet. The zigzag in Ri was seen as representing BTS's journey, full of twists, challenges, yet always moving forward. The curve in Rong was read as an embrace between tradition and modernity, between Korea and the world. Yet the deeper the analysis went, the more it felt that the sketch was not just art, but a subtle political cultural statement. Arirang, which had long belonged to the people, now had the potential to become part of BTS's global narrative. The question was no longer whether Jungkook respected Arirang, but whether the world was ready to see Arirang through the lens of K-pop. Beneath all of this, one core tension remained: the relationship between artist and institution. Jungkook is a gifted individual with a clear creative vision, but he is also part of a vast system called HYB. Was this Arirang sketch purely his personal expression, or the result of collaboration, even direction, from Si-hyuk and the company's creative team? Some industry analysts argued that Si-hyuk might see Jungkook as the ideal face to bring Korean cultural symbols onto the global stage. Jungkook's charisma, combined with BTS's reputation, made him a powerful cultural communicator. From this perspective, taking over Arirang did not mean seizing it, but elevating it to a level never reached before. However, for some, this perspective remained problematic. They worried that in the process of globalization, Arirang could lose its original meaning, becoming merely a repackaged aesthetic for international consumption. If that happened, would Jungkook or Si-hyuk bear responsibility for that shift in meaning? Amid all these questions, one thing became increasingly clear: Jungkook's Arirang sketch had transcended the boundary between art and public discourse. It was no longer just an image on a screen, but a catalyst that sparked dialogue about identity, power, and the future of Korean culture in the era of global K-pop. And as the dust of speculation had yet to settle, Si-hyuk's shadow still lingered behind the scenes, unseen, yet never truly absent. As if every red line in the sketch carried the imprint of an invisible hand, steering the narrative toward a purpose not yet fully revealed. In the end, the question that had echoed from the beginning remained unanswered. Did Jungkook truly take over Arirang? Or did he become a bridge between tradition and the world, under Si-hyuk's strategic watch? And further still, would the public be ready to accept the answer when the curtain finally rose? And as night fell over Seoul, the shadow of the Arirang sketch seemed to linger in the air, no longer as an image, but as an unanswered question. Behind every red line, there was a story yet untold. Behind every circle, there was a silent space that held more than mere aesthetics. Jungkook, without uttering a single word, had sparked a conversation that stretched far beyond the world of K-pop. A conversation about who has the right to interpret culture, who holds control over narrative, and how Korean identity would be read on the global stage. In academic discussion spaces, experts began comparing Jungkook's version of Arirang with its classical representations. They wondered whether this minimalism was the highest form of respect, purifying the essence without ornament, or instead a dangerous simplification that stripped away historical layers. Meanwhile, ARMY continued to debate. Some worshiped Jungkook as a creative genius, while others quietly questioned whether he was being guided by forces greater than himself. Bang Si-hyuk remained silent, and within that silence speculation flourished. Many believed this was no coincidence, that Arirang was not merely an artistic choice, but the key to a BTS comeback narrative that would shake the music industry. If true, then Jungkook's sketch was a door opener, an early signal of a grand story being crafted with near cinematic precision. Yet beneath all of this, there was something more personal. Jungkook, born on September 1, 1997, had grown up before the eyes of the world. From a shy magne into a multidimensional artist brave enough to touch national symbols. In his red lines, many saw a reflection of that journey. Courage, vulnerability, and an unstoppable artistic ambition. But the core question hung even sharper than before. Had Jungkook truly taken over Arirang, making it part of his own artistic identity? Or was he merely the face of a strategy designed behind the scenes, a gifted pawn on Bang Si-hyuk's cultural chessboard? And perhaps, that is where the greatest twist lay, that the truth did not belong entirely to Jungkook, nor entirely to HYBE, but to the millions of people who now viewed Arirang through new eyes. As the curtain had yet to fully rise, one thing was certain, that Red Sketch had changed the way we see tradition, modernity, and the power of an idol standing at the crossroads of both.